Guys, so I just want to make a quick video on some updates that's been happening recently, mostly regarding the coronavirus, also called the Chinese virus, right? There has been a lot of misinformation going around about this virus. But before I go into that, I hope everybody is safe and sound during all the crazy quarantine period that we're in. I mean, I heard that the grocery stores have limited hours now, and they're actually having cops handling the situation. So, wow. I mean, honestly, in my whole 20 years of being in the United States, I have never seen something this serious. So, I hope we'll get through it. So like I said, there's quite a lot of misinformation that's been going around about the coronavirus, mostly perpetuated by the Western media, who will just jump on anything to smear China. I mean, this is like a smear campaign that they've been doing since, I don't know, maybe like 2 centuries ago. That's when it started. Now, I'm not here to defend the CCP or anything like that. I honestly don't really have strong feeling about the CCP. I just think they're a government. I mean, they do some things better than other things, you know. And I'm also like, honestly, from a personal perspective, if I think about China, which, obviously is my native country, and I think about somewhere else like Great Britain or Italy or even the Scandinavian countries, I'm kind of a Europhile, so I actually have more. Actually, you would, if you hook me up to like some sort of GSR, which is galvanized skin response, you probably would see a bigger response when I think about like European countries than China, really. But what I am really sick of is that I feel even stronger about is brainwashing, which is what I think the Western media, I mean, whatever, the Western mainstream media has been doing, and they try to smear Trump, they try to smear men, they try to smear white people, right? They try to smear right wingers. All of these things, they have various degrees of success, but the latter few mentioned, they have less success. Why? Because there are people living in those places that can see the truth with their own eyes, and and there are a lot of YouTubers who will debunk it, which is great. But when it comes to the topic of China, it's just so much easier because, well, I mean, it's China. It's just such a fun place for everybody to hate because it has Communist Party, attached to it. And it also, and also like Chinese people are like what 5% in the U.S. and I don't know what the percentage is in Europe, but very few. And most Chinese people are not political. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, depends on how you look at it. They're just they just want to go to school, make money, have a family, move on. I mean, most of them don't even vote. I mean, citizens. Most of them don't even vote. Um, and also, like, they just have a higher tolerance for, I mean, with respect to other ethnic groups or like other racial groups. They just have a higher tolerance thresholds for, just things that are being stacked against them. Affirmative action is one example. So, this is just kind of how it is. It's just so much easier to, just talk shit about China. It doesn't matter if it's true or not, right? And there are a lot of lies which I will get into, but that's just kind of what they're doing. And when I was in ICMI, I talked to a few of people there. I don't know if any of my subscribers is one of them, but anyways, about this issue. And like it's really not like it's the mainstream media is exaggerating about China just about as much as they exaggerate about Trump or men or white people. Um, so again, the coronavirus. Recently, I think this CNN is now accusing Trump administration about racism or something because they called it a Chinese virus, a Wuhan virus, or whatever. And people have, I think there's some suggestion that was partially instigating this or some shit. Whether that's true or not, I think most of you should agree with me that I mean, they don't need China. They don't need China to do this. They've been smearing Trump. They've been trying to find anything bad to say about Trump to smear him. Okay, so even if China just didn't wasn't involved, or they were, but they don't really have any power, CNN would still do that. That's just how it is. But at the same time, though, like, I just want to make it clear, I don't think it's racist to call it a Chinese virus or Wuhan virus. I don't really care. But there have been some evidence that the Western media definitely ignored that suggests that the virus did not originate in China, that China was just the first reported case. And it could have been the first reported case because it was just, they caught it first. And also it spread the fastest because China's population, like a province is like the size of the UK or Spain. I don't think most Westerners understand the scope. And unless they've been to China, they will understand like how many people there are in China and how easy it is to spread the disease. I know that initially they think it's from the wet market, which is plausible, because we know that strange diseases, they do pass from especially live animals, which a lot of these wet markets, they do contain live animals, live wild animals, to humans. So yeah, I mean, there are past viruses from China that was the case. But it doesn't mean that every single time there's a virus breakout, that's the case. I hope that I made this clear. In this particular case, there was no conclusive evidence yet, but yet like people like Tim Pool is already jumping on the gun saying that, oh, it most definitely originated in China, like from the wet market or something like that. But nobody has concluded this. But there were two independent scientists or science teams. They did this genome sequencing, and they actually suggest that it may have come from the outside, and U.S. might be a possibility actually. And there were three scientists or three science teams. One is from China. The other two are from Japan and Taiwan. And actually, so linked below, I linked this article, and actually the Japan and the Taiwanese one, they're the ones who are suggesting that it may be from the US, whereas the Chinese one, they just said that it's from the outside. So there are evidence that are showing that the virus may have come from the outside. And again, this is not a conspiracy theory necessarily. It's not so far-fetched to say that this must be a conspiracy theory, because we know that viruses, they spread, and we know that China, no longer is close to the outside. There was a military parade that was international. There are Westerners coming into China. So, it's not a far-fetched hypothesis. It just isn't. And it could have been spread, from the outside. And there's a YouTuber that I do recommend if you are interested about what's going on in China. His name is Nathan Rich, and he's an American who currently resides in China, and he makes a lot of like pro-China videos, which of course you should take with a grain of salt, but it's definitely a side that you don't hear from anybody else. Nobody. Okay, so that's one, and again, you should watch that video and also read the link. The second misinformation, and this is just probably the biggest example I can find recently that shows you that how much the Western media has been lying about China, like everything about China. I mean, there are things that they're right, and there are things that are half truth, and there are things that are just outright lies. And this is one of those outright lies. And that is they're saying that China has a covered up the virus for months before they release it to the international organization like the World Health Organization, and this is a complete lie. Now, they release these articles about this doctor who's actually an optometrist and how he died and how he was silenced and all that stuff. When in reality, what actually happened was he wasn't the one who first discovered the virus. The first one who discovered the virus, her name is Zhang Jixian, like a doctor who's actually from, like the critical medical, I forgot exactly what the terms are. But anyways, she's from the division that handles this kind of respiratory diseases. And she's the chief there. So that's when they reported it. And this was like December 27th, 28th, I'm not sure. But it immediately was reported to the precinct health authority, and then it was reported to the province and eventually the state. All of this was 100% following the standard procedure. Now, what happened with that doctor, Dr. Li, the optometrist, who Western media said that he was the whistleblower, but he really wasn't. What happened with him was he then found out after all these investigations going on, and he messaged his friends and family, and in those texts he specifically said, please don't tell anybody else, but I want you to take care. It was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's understandable. But then, like, the problem with this is he's releasing sensitive medical information. This is the exact same procedure in the United States and anywhere in the West. I can tell you he would have been silenced in the United States as well. How do I know this? Because I worked in an institution where I was silenced for releasing sensitive information, and I can give you an example of this. Like, there was once that I was asked by my mentor to inquire about him potentially hosting this international conference. I didn't know who to ask about this, so I used the official email address on the website, thinking that it's going to go directly to the organizer. And whoever the organizer is, because the organizer name wasn't on there for some reason. I think it was because it was too early. But anyways, whoever is going to answer this email will get back to me and we'll go from there. But what I didn't know was this email ended up sending emails to everybody, like everybody associated with this area of research has gotten that email. So you can imagine how pissed the organizer was. I mean, he got it too, right? I mean, he was pissed, and I was immediately taken off of this project, basically. And then I was later I was told that you shouldn't have done that because, this is a sensitive information because nothing has been settled yet. So you can't just email everybody and tell them who's going to host like the next conference, because again, you can imagine there's a lot of politics involved. Other people may want to host it. Other people may have planned something. And you just go and release this to everybody and they all found out and there's going to be infighting going on. Similarly, if you found out about a weird disease in your area, you have to follow standard medical procedure, which is you have to submit a report, right? And somebody's going to come investigate, what's actually going on with this disease. And then that person will write up a report, and then they're going to submit it to the authorities, and then they're going to have to figure out what to do about it, right? So quarantine measures will have to be put in place. But if you just sort of jump the gun, what potentially could happen is everybody from the Wuhan province might wanted to escape. Like, they're going to run from where they were, and you're gonna create a massive panic where people will probably try to leave the area and then potentially infect many more people. I mean, this is very, very serious. I mean, and again, you have to keep in mind the population of China. So something like this happening in the United States, not as big of a deal, because again, I mean, United States has like a fifth the population of China, so it won't be as bad. But China, I mean, if a panic gets created, then it's a complete disaster. This does not fall under free speech because the government is not actually covering things up. They're just following standard procedure of releasing sensitive medical information. Just like, crying fire alarm in a movie theater does not fall under free speech, right? Because that could create a panic. That's illegal. So this is what I'm trying to say. This is just completely the mainstream media is just completely lying about this case, about what actually happened. I posted again, Nathan Rich did a timeline video, and I also posted like this, somebody who answered this question on Quora with documented evidence of when the Chinese authority have reported this case. It was within 2 days, I think it was, when the virus was first discovered. What actually happened was the report that was submitted to the World Health Organization just happened to be 1 day after Dr. Lee's text to his family members. So this is just coincidental. It's not related to each other, and you can imagine the reason is because it takes time to write up the report. I mean, that takes longer than just texting your family. And another thing is like about the silencing aspect was also overblown. The police came, they investigated what's going on with the text and everything, and Dr. Lee did not even get a warning. He was just reprimanded. Police basically just said, okay, whatever, you screwed up, but you were trying to warn your family, whatever, just don't do it again. Like, don't release sensitive medical information without following standard procedure. This is a big deal, right? So, so that was also, the mainstream media also lied about that. They were trying to give people the impression that Dr. Lee was arrested or something. I mean, there's some serious bullshit going on. And then he died, and they also tried to suggest that this was like some sort of governmental conspiracy. It wasn't. He was already seeing patients as an optometrist who have the virus, and he got infected. And he was taken to intensive care immediately, but unfortunately he died. So this is just a record I want to set straight. It's a perfect example that I can find that Western media is lying a lot of things about China. Now, I know that there's going to be some people who will say, well, China should have regulated the wet market better or whatever, and I 100% agree. That's fine, but there are also at least some provinces are starting to put into regulatory policies, and ban basically a lot of meat, a lot of wildlife food. So that's a good thing. But there's one thing that I want people to understand, because I know that there are also going to be people who say, well, why would I trust anything coming out of China? And they're just not trustworthy. It's not that it's not that I'm saying like the Chinese government is just good or whatever necessarily. It's the fact that how doesn't matter how bad and how tyrannical they are. The Chinese government's goal, the CCP's goal, number one is to maintain harmony. Okay, maintain harmony, and harmony isn't always like a good thing, right? I mean, sometimes that involves shutting people up, but they definitely do not want any kind of massive conflict going on in China right now. Their goal is to make China powerful. Really, I mean, this is for certain. Okay, I mean, it is their aspiration, you should say, to make China to be a world player. This is for certain. I mean, there's all kind of evidence for it. So when it comes to diseases, they're going to respond. They're going to make sure they're going to stop this disease. Because once again, they understand that China has a humongous population, and it's going to be a complete disaster if they don't take the necessary measures as quick as possible. The second thing that you have to keep in mind is that China has opened up. And when you open up, guess what happens? People are going to basically scrutinize you. And for China, they've been scrutinized for a very, very long time. So even if they want to just lie about everything, they can't. It's gonna be very, very difficult because everything is gonna be checked by the Western media, who's especially out there to dig up everything they can to talk shit about China. So if you think about that, you're in that position, even if you're like an evil dictator, it's gonna be kind of hard to just always lie. I'm really disappointed at, the people on the alternative media reporting this, and they don't even bother to check. I mean, when you're a journalist, right? Like, when you're somebody who wants to report things and you want to report, the Wuhan virus. See, I don't mind calling it that. Um, if I was a journalist and I look at what they say about, let's say, where the virus originated from or about this doctor, whatever, I would immediately try to find, is there another side to it? Is somebody saying something different? But nobody's doing that. That's kind of what I'm pissed about. Okay? I mean, they call themselves like free speech activists. They call themselves anti-propagandists. And every single time they look at something, that's bad say about Trump, of course they're gonna go, oh my god, I'm gonna look at it on the side. But anything about China, no, just not gonna even bother to check. So that's my video. And every again, you should read the links and watch the videos that I linked in the description. And again, I hope everybody stays safe and healthy. And yeah, and hopefully we'll all get through it. Bye.